Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Purple Luna Podcast. I am here with the love of my life. I don't know the lyrics. I feel like I've sung this song too many times, and I still don't know the lyrics.
Each time
But
it gets sweeter.
I am here with the other half of Purple Noon because there's no true comparison that I would like to make to Savanna today with the movie that we're going to be talking about. But I have Savanna Lanausse with me.
Hello.
How you doing,
Hey.
Savanna?
I'm doing good. Doing good. You know?
So
Good day.
today's episode, it's wait, what did you say?
I said it's a good day.
Oh, I thought you just said it's a day. Like just it's a day. Like, one of those. But today's episode is going to be a little bit different. So yes, we are going to talk about a movie, and specifically that movie is 71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance. My lord, what a title. But first off, we wanted to talk some movie news and some movie kibitza that's been going in and out circulation. And I think there's really like 2 or 3 topics we wanted to hit because one, this movie is not going to take a full hour-long discussion or anything, but 2, these things just need to be talked about.
Absolutely.
The first being, what is all of the Citizen Kane slander?
So it all started with apparently Paddington Bear 2 has either a better rating or the same rating as Citizen Kane.
I think it went up higher. I think it beat Citizen Kane.
Right. And then all these people on Twitter was like, oh, well, Citizen Kane is not a good movie. I don't know about you, Stephanie, but when I hear people talking about like older movies, how people don't like older movies, I assume it's because they're old.
Yeah, there's usually like I've definitely seen threads where you have like new age film students, the guys who are like, I know cinema, but only watch Quentin Tarantino. And they go, what's the point of watching black and white movies when I could watch things in 4K? And it's just the most obnoxious thing. Like, look, with all due respect, if you just haven't found a movie that you like in black and white,
That's fine.
That's your own issue. That's your own mental illness. But if you purposely not seek out black and white movies because you think they all like are lame, that's weird. That's weird, in my opinion. Like, you're missing some good treasures when you're not looking at that stuff. So, like, I saw like a thread of people talking about Citizen Kane, and I remember seeing one person on a Twitter thread, and they were pretty much saying like, "Oh yeah, it's so boring," and essentially saying like, I don't want to see another, powerful white man doing what he does in a movie. And part of me is like, on one hand, I get it, but this is the OG of powerful white men just doing white men powerful stuff. Like, it just, I mean, wouldn't you want to, like, at least if you're going to watch that category, watch the best one. Like, let's be honest. There's not a lot of, and I understand there's not the best stuff within that category of just white powerful men doing white powerful men things. But, I mean, Citizen Kane's the best at it.
I agree. And also, let's not forget he has mommy issues. Like, this isn't just some, like, I'm the best guy in the world. We get to watch this man, like, cry.
This is a real man with mommy issues.
And he cries over a sled, like, yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I think it goes above and beyond. It shows really a human in the suit rather than just a soulless white man who's just looking to make money and make the orphans cry. That could just be Little Orphan Annie, though, because I don't recall any other movies with white powerful men right now, except Daddy Warbucks.
Wolf on Wall Street, that's the only one that comes to mind.
Oh my god, you mean every business major's favorite film?
Dude, if you meet a guy and he likes that movie, just run the other way.
It's not a bad movie, but if they're like,
if they
best movie ever
idolize
made,
yeah, then no.
If he wants to be, oh my god, what's the character's name?
Jordan Belfort.
Oh my god, if he wants to be another Jordan Belfort, run for the hills.
Agreed.
But I didn't understand the slander, and I'm not slandering Paddington Bear. Like,
cutest bear in the world.
He's
I love
valid.
his Twitter.
He's valid. Like, that's one thing for sure. But I just don't understand, how people are going to slander Citizen Kane, but then yet people are still talking about my number one nemesis, Birth of a Nation. Like, yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like you're going to I mean, pick your poison. A good movie with an actual decent plot that doesn't have huge racist undertones beneath it, or Birth of a Nation. I mean, come on, pick your poison here.
Yeah.
Like, just go, just really think about it. And like, I can understand like people going, I just don't like Citizen Kane. That is fine. You don't think Citizen Kane is the best movie in the world? I don't either. And I know like so many, it's like considered like, oh, the best movie. I think it has a lot of great elements, and I think it's taught us a lot within filmmaking and film knowledge and things like that. Definitely a pioneer, but I don't think it's as awful as, for some reason, these people who are just saying like, oh yeah, dethrone it, let Paddington Bear go. I mean, like, let the charts fall where they may, but Citizen Kane is not a bad movie to cause this much of a discussion.
Agreed. Why is it coming up anyway? Oh yeah, because of Paddington Bear. I mean,
Because
we could
I
just
think the
let it live.
director of Paddington Bear actually mentioned it. He was like, hey, I'm not trying to cause any drama here, but I greatly appreciate this spot. Can we talk about how it's not even Paddington Bear 1? It's Paddington Bear 2.
What is the difference? Is that the one with
I
Hugh
don't
Grant?
know, but
Let me
I
see.
think so. I don't know. I haven't, look, I like Paddington Bear. I think he's cute. I like the Twitter account like you do, but
Let me see.
I just don't
It is the one
understand
with
why
Hugh
to.
Grant.
Okay, so maybe that's why.
It's a solid movie, but I don't.
But also, to be completely fair, all of this, dethroning of, Citizen Kane happens on Rotten Tomatoes. Are we really going to listen to anyone on Rotten Tomatoes? I'm not. I'm not, especially since the reason why Citizen Kane was dethroned was because of an 80-year-old review of the film was put on Rotten Tomatoes, and it lowered the score.
Oh no. Yeah.
I mean, if this old man is alive, I mean, props to him for getting the last laugh on Orson Welles, but at what cost?
Dude, it's been like what, 70 years?
It's literally the Titanic meme. It's been 80 years. And finally, this man, maybe I really hope, the only winner who I hope here is that old man who set that review out. I hope right now he is alive, he is well, and I hope he is just so happy that he's finally, like, his voice is finally being heard after 80 years. I hope for that for him. I hope for that Joker arc for him.
You know what? Yeah. Props to him. Props to him.
All right. And then the next thing we got to talk about is the Oscars and the absolute train wreck it was, to say the least.
I don't understand, first of all, why it was formatted like that. It looked like they just put it together the day of, the whole thing.
Yeah, no offense to film students, but it looked like they went to like UCLA and just got like a couple of like first year film students to just set up everything. Very weird. And
Very
I don't
awkward seating too. I didn't understand.
Like, I understand, like, I also just wasn't a fan of the whole like no mask thing. I just, I think they may have mentioned that everyone was vaccinated, which, okay, I get it, but still, it's just not, in my opinion, a good message to just start putting out there, especially, right now when there's a possibility of a variant and India's being ravaged by it. It's just not a good look, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree. I think if they would have just done it the regular way and just had everyone wear masks, it would have been much better.
Yeah, and then also, like, I understand certain people can't travel and things like that, but at this point, it should have just been pre-recorded, all of it. So that way, it should have just been like pre-recorded, no one knew and stuff like that, and like was going to air like shortly after, like after everything was like all pre-recorded and stitched and everything like that. I think that would have just been so much better. And I also really, really just was so underwhelmed by the movie selection that was nominated this year.
Yeah, they definitely had like slim pickings.
Yeah, like I totally get, I understand there wasn't a lot to cultivate from the crop, to say the least, but Come on, Nomadland wasn't that great, guys, and it wasn't that invented. Like,
I am
Catherine Bigelow did
so
this shit 10 years ago.
I am
Let's
so
give her the credit.
disappointed. I'm so disappointed. Out of every movie, I'm being completely honest, I really didn't want that one to win.
Yeah, like, I think, and, like, I understand and I want to see women of color and just women in general just
Absolutely.
going up there and winning the awards, but honestly, it kind of just compared to everything that was also up against, it just kind of felt like a participation trophy. And I hate to say it like that, but it really just, I mean, I'm proud of Chloe Zhao. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name, and I'm happy that she was able to take home this victory. But it just, for some reason, it just doesn't sit right. It just feels like a participation trophy, especially with the whole lackluster of the Oscars. They didn't make it a big deal that she won, and it really should have been. For that night, it should have been.
There's so many things that should have been a big deal. Her especially. But the first Korean woman to ever win an Oscar won the Oscar for Best Actress.
Yeah,
That
and
wasn't a big deal.
that was well deserved. That was entirely
Absolutely.
well deserved. We saw Minari, we reviewed it, and we absolutely loved her performance. And she was probably like the best kept secret of that entire movie because they really don't advertise that movie as a focus on her.
Yeah.
So she was great. She was awesome, and that was so well deserved. I also just one thing, and I will shout this out from every street corner I can find. Why was not what's the movie? Oh my god,
The
The
Five
Five
Bloods.
Bloods. The
Yeah.
Five Bloods. That movie should have been nominated. That movie should have dominated the categories. Like, we're talking from a directing, a writing, it was nominated for music, but Delroy Lindo, Chadwick Boseman, those were some incredible performances. The directing was astounding. I hadn't like that was my favorite movie of 2021. That
Yeah.
was the best. It had everything, action, comedy. It was just overall so well-rounded of a film. And the I had never seen in probably like the past 10 years, that was probably Delroy Lindo's performance was probably one of the best I've seen, especially when he's having his monologues. They were just you don't see a lot of male characters today having full-length monologues. That used to be more of like a trope from like the 50s and like, more like
Exactly.
Shakespearean type stuff. And they gave this man a monologue. Not only was it powerful, but his performance and everything is just so crazy and so incredible. And oh my god, the moment where he's hugging Chadwick Boseman and everything, I'm just sobbing so hard. It definitely I don't understand why that movie. And I saw a lot of other people complaining about that too. Like, why wasn't it nominated? And just consider like comparing it against everything. And I remember I texted you, I did a whole summary of all the different movies that there was. And it was like, Nomadland, A Woman Wanders, and just things like that. And The Five Bloods was totally, totally, totally so different from every single one and just nailed every single category.
I couldn't agree more. I don't really understand why that movie was snubbed, except for music for some reason, which I feel like for me is a bigger slap in the face because the Academy somewhat recognizes the film, but they kind of put it in.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, you couldn't been up for nominations because it's not like we had to wonder about that. Like, obviously, if it was nominated for music, it could have been nominated for everything else.
Absolutely. I'll be honest, I saw The Sound of Metal.
Mm-hmm.
Good movie, but for me, did not need to be up for the majority of the nominations.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of these films were good. I think Minari deserved it. I think to be nominated. I think The Father deserved it. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I think some of them should have been up there, but half of them should have not been up there. So for me, there was really no excuse to snub The Five Bloods.
Yeah, absolutely. It just felt like such a slap in the face to like cuz especially when we're talking about all of these cultural issues going on right now between the Asian community and the Black community, and that movie hits both. That movie talks about so much. And it's like, and I'm not discrediting, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or The Trial
No,
of the
no.
Chicago 2nd or Judas and the Black Messiah. I am not downplaying any of those movies, but I don't understand how you can recognize those movies and not recognize The Five Bloods, especially when it talks about just all of those movies kind of, and like, except for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, have been talked about before. Maybe not Minari. Minari is more of new to the game in terms of its, talking about an Asian family struggling in Midwest. That is definitely a newer view. But The Five Bloods focuses on like the military, people of Asian descent in the military, people of African descent in the military, and that is something that we have not seen before.
Yeah.
So really, just I don't know how you can start talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, all these other movies without mentioning The Five Bloods.
I couldn't agree more. I thought that was very sad that no mention of it.
Mm-hmm. And sadly, I didn't get to see a lot of everything, so like I can't really say a lot. I know you saw Promising Young Woman and you really enjoyed it. I have seen seen a lot of split thoughts on Promising Young Woman. I swear, the day it won, I think for best screenplay, I probably saw like 5 different tweets from other film critics and things like that, tearing it apart, and I was very surprised. I don't understand why. Do you understand why?
So I think the film is some people can perceive it as very anti-male, which I did not. I think the movie was about unveiling the nice guy trope. So, like the nice guy who, like the guys that like say, oh, I'm a good guy, I'm going to help you, but have like very bad motives, secret motives.
Yeah.
This movie basically talked about that. And it was about a woman who was basically dealing with life after losing her best friend after she had been pretty much raped and ended up killing herself. And the movie, it just is it takes a very interesting take on what women really have to go through with men, a lot of men. And I don't think I can understand some people saying, oh, this villainizes men, but at the end of the day, it's showing one type of character.
Yeah.
One type of villainous character. So for me, I really like that because there's no movies about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no movies about that. And it's very comic booky. She's sort of this hero at the end of it. It's very I liked it, and I thought she did a good job. I thought it was a very innovative movie. Now, I think it won in the place it needed to win. I don't think it needed to win in Best Picture. It needed to win in Best Actress. Although it was very good, I do think other things were well deserved. But I do think the message of this movie is very appropriate. It's just a little exaggerated. It's a movie, of course, but I think the meaning of it is good. I think people need to understand the things women go through and some of the dangers we actually face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't speak much about it because, like I said, I haven't seen it. But I did just see a lot of, very split 50-50 of either I loved it or either I hated it. So I definitely want to watch it. And maybe one of these upcoming episodes we can have a little quick talk about it.
Sure.
I was also just really surprised at how much Another Round was really inflated, especially how immediately after it wins, the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, how immediately they're talking about making a remake of it with DiCaprio.
It came out 2 seconds ago.
Here's my thing. If you need a remake for a movie that came out 3 months ago, that means you hit the mark. You really hit the mark on it. Oh, you missed the mark.
Yeah.
Sorry. You really missed the mark on it. Like, a foreign film, if it's good, people will watch it. Look at Parasite.
Yeah.
People will watch it if it's good. For them to remake Another Round, and stuff like that, unless they wanted to do like a US adaptation, because then you're also taking one of the very few things about Another Round that make it special. You're taking both the two things about it. One, the setting of Denmark, and two, Mads Mikkelsen. You're taking the two strongest things from the film and you're stripping its backbones, essentially. So I don't understand that at all.
I hope they don't do that because I do feel like it's a slap in the face to the original. I think if you're out here saying like, oh, let's make a remake of a movie that came out, exactly what you said, but saying like, let's make it American, for me, that's a little bit of a slap in the face.
Like no one's asking for a US version of Parasite. No one is asking because Parasite in and of itself, and I'm just saying it because it's one of the more recent foreign films that kind of everyone knows about. no one's saying that about Parasite because Parasite in itself is a great movie. A lot of people, although there was a lot of good criticism for Another Round, if it really was that good, would it need a remake? I don't think so.
I completely agree, but I also do think a lot of people, and we've talked about this briefly, don't watch foreign movies.
Yeah.
So I do think somebody's trying to play at like the popularity of it a little bit in these other countries. And now that it's kind of hyped up at the Oscars, it won the award. I do think they're just like, all right, like, let's get people to watch this movie here even more. But I agree with you. If this movie was 1,000 out of 1,000, it really wouldn't need a remake, or it wouldn't even be thought about, because at this point, like you were saying, movies like Parasite, or even what's another film I'm trying to think, let's think
Like
older, like
Amelie.
yeah, things like that, they're sort of untouchable at this point. Like, you
Yeah.
can't take the charm out of it. So I
Yeah.
agree with you, but I also do understand, like, a lot of people in our culture for some reason are very stubborn against foreign
Yeah, and
films.
I'm not doubting, like, for example, if they gave Another Round to Martin Scorsese and DiCaprio, it's gonna be a good movie regardless, but you're taking, like I said, it's just a slap in the face to, foreign films. It
Yeah.
really is just a slap in the face. Like, yeah, I might enjoy the movie, but you're literally removing the only 2 things that I actually found charm in of the original movie, and I just don't care for it. Also, I just don't feel the need to watch, I'm sorry, another white guy get drunk and be regretty. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just, for me personally, Another Round was so unrelatable. Not because I'm a girl, not because I don't drink, but because there's just not a lot to it. There's not a lot of extension that movie gives. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with that movie. It doesn't give itself to you. It's just kind of like, I'm here, take me for what you want. If you can relate to me, you can. If you can't, you can't. Which some cases, some movies work like that. I don't think this movie was supposed to work like that.
Yeah, I it definitely missed a lot of marks, unfortunately.
Maybe in Denmark it has a certain charm, maybe because that's, more of the atmosphere and things like that, maybe because there's a cultural connection, maybe that's why it could be so good to people from Denmark who view it, but as an American watching it, it's just very hard to find that, connection with, or even sadly an interest with. Um, and yeah, I also just really did not like with the Oscars how they completely switched between Best Actor and Best Picture.
I wanna
And
rant about that. My
let's
poor
be
grandpa
honest.
Tony. I can't. Like, this sweet old man, like, they put this, first of all, did you hear about what they did with the whole, like, having him interact on Zoom?
No, I did not hear.
So basically, I was reading some tweets, and Anthony Hopkins wanted to participate. He couldn't go over there because of COVID. He's an older man. And
Yeah,
he
he
was
lives
like,
in
"But
Wales.
can I like participate over Zoom?" And they were just like, "No, you can't do that. You're either going to be in or out." So they pretty much produced the whole show around Chadwick Boseman winning, which was a disaster,
Yeah.
a complete disaster. It's a slap in the face to Boseman's wife and Anthony Hopkins, who I
And
say completely deserve the award. I
she was probably backstage waiting to come out and give a speech and everything. She was probably told, I didn't watch that part. So did she make an appearance or anything like that?
I didn't, so I stopped watching before Best Picture, but I assume so, because I did see some tweets about how disrespectful it was to Boseman's wife, because I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, she was there at the very
Yeah.
least.
And like, not, and look, I do believe Anthony Hopkins deserves the award, but I also
Absolutely.
believe if Chadwick Boseman was given the award, I do believe it was deserved too. You're dealing with 2 fantastic actors, one of which is sadly no longer with us. But to do that and to play around with people and their emotions, could you imagine if his wife is behind the stage waiting to give a speech and everything because she was told, oh, yeah, it's going to be a shoe-in and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Anthony Hopkins wins, and that's it. That's the end of the show. Anything that she's prepared or anything doesn't get to go out and stuff. And like, that's just so sad to me. And also on Anthony Hopkins' part, he wanted to participate. They wouldn't let him.
And then you're
And
just gonna throw him under dude, I felt so bad for his speech because he just looked so sorry. Like, he
yeah,
just looked so apologetic about it, and I'm just sitting there like, "Sweet man, you deserve this." I saw The Father, and it I will never watch it again because of how
gut wrenching. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
he was amazing in the film. There's
Hmm.
especially the ending of the movie. Um, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the movie's about an older man who has dementia, and it is such a beautiful film, and it really helps you understand what people with dementia go through.
Hmm.
And it was 100% well deserved. And not that Boseman, of course, didn't deserve it. Absolutely, he did a great performance. I feel bad though because I do see a lot of hate towards Anthony Hopkins when this sweet old man did nothing. He's
Yeah,
adorable.
it's so sad too because not only did he want to not risk, traveling and, spreading COVID and stuff like that, but the man has autism. He's not a
Yeah.
huge fan of, and he found out this later in life. He's not a huge fan of the crowds and the stages and stuff like that. But he still wanted to be a part of it. It's just so sad that the Oscar really just really fumbled. They really fumbled. Usually the Oscars are about celebrating, great actors, actresses, crew members, things like that, directors, everything. And they really just made it seem like it was like, and they kind of proved it that it's all just for money. It's all just for publicity. Really sad, really, really sad. I also just felt like even just going back with all the movies that did come out and stuff, even like when looking at the best actress, best actor categories, things like that, and even best director, it's so in terms of what was offered of last year, I really look at it and I go, really, was that the best of last year? I mean, aside from thinking about the Five Bloods, I'm really looking at that and going, like, really? Like, I felt like there was more, and I was really, really surprised and disappointed. That she was one of the presenters, and she directed One Night in Miami. I was surprised she was not nominated.
Oh, Regina King. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. She's a very good director. I'm also surprised in terms of best directing. Like I said, not to crap on Chloe Zhao and her achievement or anything, but and I can't really say a lot because the only movies that I did see within this category are Minari and Nomadland. I would have thought, and Another Round, which I don't understand that was why that was nominated for directing, but neither here nor there. I was very surprised that a movie like Mank wouldn't have one for directing, especially
I
considering the time period being black and white, being all of this stuff that make that, that film stands out the most compared to everyone.
I did not see Mank, but okay. So it's interesting that you bring up Citizen Kane because
There's a connection.
a lot of people were saying similar things about Mank. People were just like, I don't want to see another white guy. I don't want to, you know what I mean? And I think
Gotcha.
the Oscars have become I love that the Oscars are being diverse because we need that. We need women, we need people of color. But I do feel like they're now being extra careful to not include certain films because of
Backlash and things like that.
yeah, and look, at the end of the day, I don't know if Mank deserved it. I actually didn't see Mank.
Mhm.
Um, but I do feel like that's maybe where that's coming from.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is
just one of
difficult
those
because
things.
yeah, it's
It
difficult, I think yeah, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, go
No,
ahead.
you're good. You're good. I was just gonna say that it kind of sucks because in a way, if let's be honest, if Chloe Zhao or Emerald Fennell didn't win, you have one part of the internet that would have done a witch hunt for the Oscars and not allowing a woman to win an Oscar. When in reality, people just don't want to accept that sometimes when you have women in these categories, whether it's women in an all men category, whether it's men in an all women category, whichever it may be, what other circumstance, sometimes just being what standing out against all of them doesn't make you the best of the bunch.
I that's what I was kinda going at, I think it gets difficult in these situations, just because, like I said, there should be more diversity, more women, we need that, but
Mhm.
what do you do when it's, not as good. Their films are not as good sometimes. And it's just like everybody, it's just like everybody. Some people have better films than others. But I do feel like because of the culture right now, it can get a little touchy. I see one of the things I've always been wondering about is like, what do you do when there are movies about like time periods, a specific
Mhm.
time period? Like you're gonna make a movie about 1700s in France. That's clearly gonna be all white people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I
Unless you
feel
pull
like
a Bridgerton, and you kinda,
absolutely that's
but if
cool
you wanna
too.
remain historically accurate and stuff like that, like, it is tough, and I think that's also a case for a movie like Mank. It's just a
Yes,
part of history, and sadly, that was the history back then. I mean, did David Fincher have every right to go back and, change it and, do a little Inglorious Bastards Tarantino style to it?
love that.
Absolutely, but sometimes it just feels very, and I can understand a director not wanting to do that out of disrespect.
Yeah. Again, this is not I want more diversity in films. I think it's important. I think it's important to sometimes do a Bridgerton. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it
Yeah.
makes the story even cooler. But there are movies that you can't just do that. And I really hope, they're included as well.
Yeah, there would be like if you're gonna start making like fake stories, even if it's a timepiece, if it takes place, if it does in Inglorious Bastards where it's nonsensical, at least like you can include diverse people in. If you're making modern movies, there's no excuse not to include diverse unless you're doing like a cultural piece of like monks in Tibet. Yeah, you might not want a white guy named
No,
Chad in the shot.
we need to be
Like,
accurate here, people.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's one of those touchy subjects, but as long as you're just paying respect to whatever topic you're talking about, and also if you're making a film that's set in today, if you're respecting the times, today is not a black and white world. We live in a
No, be
multicolored
modern. If you're
world.
making
Yeah.
a movie about 2021, it better not just be a bunch of white dudes. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. Dude, you know what I heard today, speaking of all this? And I feel like we can talk about this because we're women. I saw somebody on Twitter was just like, I want to see 12 Angry Men remade, but with women.
Interesting.
I think it's
Here's the thing.
difficult because
They've done that with Ghostbusters though, and it did. And although 12 Angry Women and Ghostbusters are very, very different, when you do that and you try to switch things up, it just doesn't work because once again, you're just taking that would be like if someone was like, "Do you want to make an all-girl version of The Thing?" No, because I don't want you to ruin the original The Thing. Not because I don't want women in film or I don't want to see a group of 12 women doing their thing. But I think if you're going to have a whole group of women and actresses all together, instead of doing like the 15th Charlie's Angels remake or a remake of 12 Angry
do
Men and
something
calling it
new.
12 Angry Women, just do something different and new.
I think that's the problem. I think that's maybe what we're getting at here. This whole remaking it for diversity's sake is not working.
The only reason why I think a movie could be remade or a TV show could be redone is if one, a newer time, and this kind of is a good segue into the movie we're talking about. If times have changed and the movie can be adapted to fit a newer scenario and make it its own new thing, as well as like I think a good example of that would be Psycho versus the Bates Motel TV show, which have two
Yeah.
entirely different endings that adapted to the times, and it ended up still being fantastic.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, or simply it just wasn't a good movie and it could be made better. Those are really the only two circumstances I see a movie should be remade. And so, do you want to segue into the movie we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so we have 71 fragments of a chronology of chance, which is done, written, and directed by Michael Haneke. I'm going to pronounce his name as, I'm pretty sure that's right, or Haneke. But essentially, it's about 71 scenes revolving around a recent immigrant, a couple that has just adopted a daughter, a college student, and a lonely man. And essentially, all of this ties together. Almost all of it ties together into essentially this culmination ending scene of a shooting done in a bank. And this movie, it's a Austrian film, and some of the stars include Gabriel Cosman Erdis, Lucas Miko, Otto Grunmandel, and very, very interesting. A lot of these actors and actresses, maybe Anne Bennett might be a familiar name. Not a ton of familiar names in this movie, except one person who plays a little kid in the train station. Do you remember that little kid?
Mm-hmm.
That is Bucky Barnes, aka Sebastian Stan.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so crazy. I was very surprised because when I looked at the movie, his name pops up first due to popularity. I'm like, what? And then I just realized he's playing kid. And at first I thought he was the immigrant kid. And I'm like, I don't think that's him. That doesn't really look like him. And then I noticed from a wide angle shot, you just see him, dancing with the little immigrant kid. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool that he had his, first start, in this movie. But with this movie is currently available on the Criterion channel, not in the collection, but it is on the channel. And I specifically picked this movie. It was already on our list in terms of alphabetical criterions that we were going to go through in Criterion channel picks. But I ended up asking Savanna to move this up at the time of the supermarket shooting that happened in Colorado, because I thought it would be very important to bring up a movie like this because it relates to our time. So, Savanna, what did you think of this movie?
Wow. I mean, for a movie that's made 30 years ago almost and in Austria, it's very relatable to the United States, as you said. Um, I also really like the perspective of the film. The film doesn't really focus on um, the shooter per
Mhm.
se. We don't actually know too much, but it's just little glimpses of everybody involved, the victims, the shooter in their life. That's a really unique perspective to go after. And I was like, wow, that I don't know about you, but I've never seen a movie do that.
There's only one similar, but not done like this, and it's actually a movie we talked about. The only movie that reminds me of this is 24 Frames by Abbas Kiarostami. So that's the guy who had like
Oh, the paintings. Okay,
the
I can
paintings
see
that
what
would
you're
come
doing.
alive and stuff like that. That was the only thing that really struck in my head as something similar to this movie. But continue with what you were saying.
No, yeah. I never seen it. I mean, I guess now that you're saying that, that kind of does remind me of it. But I never seen a movie shot like this per se. It kind of goes in and out of just the characters' plots. And it's very interesting because I don't think it's either plot driven or character driven. We're kind of just going with the flow.
It's more finale driven.
Yes,
It's not dependent on the people. We don't really get to know a lot about them, but it's really that end is what matters, and what everything culminates to that end. You don't watch the movie to understand characters. You don't watch the movie to really sympathize with anyone or to feel for anyone. You just know that it expresses in the beginning. There is a title in the beginning that says what happens. And it's this really interesting like weaving because it's not, 100% easy to identify who's the killer, who's the
exactly.
shooter. And I think that's one of the more brilliant things about this is because especially when all of a sudden we see a military man who is being asked about, hey, there was a gun from the armory stolen. Where did it go? And then you see a guy exchanging a gun and like you kind of follow through until it lands on one character, which in my opinion was not the character that I thought was ended going to be the shooter.
Me neither. I thought it was gonna be the kid, the homeless kid.
Yeah, and so like there's a lot of different weavings, and then you see a lot of different good and bad elements of everyone in this life and how they all connect together. Whether it's the loveless couple that's just like there's these intense, uncomfortable scenes of them eating together, and you can just feel their sorrow. They don't say anything, they don't express anything to like either of each other, but you can just feel like, man, this is not going well for them. Their marriage is not working. And I think this is one of the more brilliant parts of the movie is the fact that without words, without emotions, you can feel tension, volumes of emotion just based off little positions and little moments, at little almost uncomfortable moments that you're watching.
Oh, but I think that's like the brilliance of the film because the whole film is unnerving. I think the what the director did was pretty genius. He tells us what's going to happen. So the whole movie, I was just on edge. I was just like, okay, like these people are going to die. These people like it's very upsetting, but also you're kind of thinking like, wow, this is actually like a very good idea for this
Yeah.
concept. So I thought it was very unique in that way where your audience is just on edge the whole time. So that in itself, and I think with the, obviously with the plot and what happens, you should be. So I think he took a really horrifying story and made it very unsettling throughout the whole film. You know, because most movies, you don't get unsettled till like the thing happens. Especially in these kind of situations, it's all usually calm in the beginning. You don't know what's going to happen. But the opening scene is about what happens. And
Yeah,
he
and they
kind of
don't
tells
show
you,
anything that you
no,
just get,
it's
and
not
you get a
gory.
lot of, and you always have a sense that something's going to happen, and you're kind of reminded that something bad is going to happen through these glimpses of news clips that appear throughout the film, talking about the war in Bosnia at the time, talking
Yeah.
about sexual allegations of child molestation against Michael Jackson. Like, it's just even more things to just kind of have you recognize something bad is something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I do think that this movie does run a little bit too long is my only thing. However, I do think it is worth the entire viewing, especially maybe not to the average consumer. If you are someone who wants to be in film, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be a director, this is definitely something that you should look into without a doubt. But um I think so did you feel that there was like a sense of imbalance between certain storylines?
Yeah. That was another issue I had. Not only was it slow, but I felt like sometimes the film focused on one character more than the other. And it kind of left me a little confused at some points. And I do feel like there was a lot of unnecessary fluff also. Just
Yeah.
things
Like
to
I
fill up the
think
movie.
I think there was a like I think they spent a little too much time on the immigrant boy. Cuz I think it would have been a lot more shocking when he ends up becoming adopted by, the other parents and stuff. I think it would have been like, "Oh my god." I do like the fact that all these worlds connect before they're ending in the connect, before they're the finale. Um but like for example, the old man on the phone trying to talk to his daughter. I thought that scene was just too long. It didn't feel like it was giving me anything. I literally could have gotten what I received from like that 4 to 5 minutes of that scene, I could have gotten within 30 seconds.
I agree. Like I said, there's a lot of fluff in the movie, and for a movie that's only an hour and 45, it feels long. It feels like you're sitting there for a while.
Yeah. And also like with the guy who's playing ping pong, who
Oh my
ultimately ends up
gosh,
becoming the shooter.
that was
I,
3 minute scene.
and I understand because I understand why you would want to show off a little bit more than a minute of that scene, but it just went on for too long. Because if they had shown it for a minute and then, a few scenes later, they cut to him being berated on his play and stuff like that, it still would have been as dramatic if he was playing, ping pong for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think what they could have done to, kind of compensate for the amount of time you're watching this kid play ping pong, I think it would have been good to find, like, and I think one thing that's a little bit weird is for all these characters, not a lot of them have emotion.
And also the film is, I mean, I assumed he did that on purpose though, because the movie's very gray and there's
Yeah.
no music and it's just quiet. The movie's
And I
very
understand,
quiet.
like, especially having the ping pong kid, having him have an outburst and things like that would have been a good indication, like, hey, maybe he's going to be the school shooty boy. I think that would have maybe alluded to that, but I think they definitely could have had, maybe not with the couple that's just struggling with their marriage, but maybe more so with the parents of the adopted kids or even the immigrant boy or the ping pong guy. Like, I feel like they could have added more moments of emotions in between because there's something oddly alien about this movie. It is simultaneously the most realistic and the most alienated movie. And I say alienated where it just feels so foreign that you're just seeing all these people not feel. Not too sure if that's a cultural difference or if that's just the way the movie was intended to be.
I feel like it was shot like a documentary.
Yep.
Because like you said, it's very, you're on the outside looking in. You don't know what everybody's thinking. You're kind of given what you're told. So for me, I thought like maybe he wanted it to be like that. Maybe we're not supposed to know about the characters because we do know their future. So
Yeah.
I assumed it was like that, but I agree. I would have liked a little bit more something. Even if it was a smidged, I would have preferred
Maybe
something.
it correlates to the fact that because ultimately, in the end, all these people are treated as just as like numbers and headlines to, the piece that the shooting is about. I wonder if it was chose that way so we can kind of just carry that feeling from beginning to end. Because ultimately, when we hear, three people shooting, obviously we're going to feel that shock. We're going to hear like, oh my God, especially when the scene happens. It's very shocking. But there's not a lot of long lasting, lingering feeling because we never fully got to understand these characters. Maybe as a play in real life and how we view school, how I keep saying school shootings and how we view senseless shootings and stuff, maybe a play because it's very hard for us to connect when it doesn't involve in our own world because we're just selfish beings and whatnots. um I don't know. And then also when you said with the whole documentary, it made me think all of these characters act like they know they're being recorded.
But I think that's a flaw of the film in a way.
Hmm.
I think you have a good point where when he was saying like, "Oh, when we hear these headlines, we kind of just move on." Wouldn't it, what do you think? Wouldn't it have been better to actually make a film about, hey, when you hear about like, oh, 4 or 5 people getting killed, these are the 4 or 5 people, these were their lives, they were people, they're not just numbers. I think that would have made more of an impact than us watching these very um just cold.
Very
I don't know.
very blasé and cold.
Yeah, I think that would have made, at least for me, more in a I think maybe not every single character, but at least if we got to feel for 2 or 3, I think that's for me more of an impact because I know, and I think you would agree, when most people hear like, 3 people were killed in a shooting, you feel sad, but at the end of the day, like, that's just a number in your head now. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
that's
really
just,
get
that's
to.
just a news headline you can recall to, like the supermarket shooting that happened, like in
Mhm.
the U.S. The three Asian massage places that were targeted in Georgia, like
Mhm.
those. It's even like I don't remember the names of the victims. I don't remember the name of the places. I don't remember those things because I don't have a connection to those. I don't know, maybe if he was really just trying to be as realistic as possible and just show like this is what happens when this happens and you see it.
Yeah.
But as someone who loves the trauma, as someone who wants to feel, I do agree. I did wish that there was more persona. Like most of them, we don't even know their names. I can understand with like certain characters, like maybe, the old man who's sick trying to connect with his daughter. They have, very emotional, stagnant interactions. Maybe the wife and the husband who are just not doing so great. Maybe that could have some coldness to it. But even like a young college student, a young immigrant boy who essentially is running around in the city and the city is his,
Yeah.
I feel like they could have dispersed more emotion here and there between those things. Um, but I think in terms of all the storylines, I do think are good. And I really do like how it connects. But we got to talk about the ending. So the ending occurs when essentially the ping pong boy, as I call them, I don't know names, um, he essentially goes to the gas station to get gas day before Christmas. And he goes in, he goes, "Hey, do you accept card?" And they go, "No, cash." And he goes, "Oh, well, where's the ATM?" And they go, "There's a bank right across." But now he has to leave his car in front of the gas station. And, he's already, people are getting, upset at him for doing this. He goes into the bank. The lines are long as hell. He tries to not cut, but he asks the teller, he's like, "Hey, can you please, I just need gas money." And the guy in front of the line ends up, physically assaulting him and pushes him to the ground and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, this kid goes back to his car. He then listens to what I believe to be US or European rap at the time. And it goes and cuts between other people and other scenes and stuff until finally we kind of just see him have his breaking point. And he gets out of the car. He gets the gun from his trunk. He goes into the bank, kills three people. We can allude to one because we do see the blood escaping from his chest and he's not moving. And that would be the husband of like the
Yeah.
loveless marriage type of situation. And then he goes back into his car and he kills himself. And we just only know three people. We don't know who. But one of the things that I think make this film brilliant is the way it ends specifically. I loved how it just plays the segment and then all of a sudden it plays all the other segments that we've seen. And it really just solidifies that this is not, this is like the average news. This is something you've felt before. This is something you've seen before. Whether it's a celebrity, a well-known celebrity, being, accused of something horrendous. There's a war going on in a country and no one's caring about it. There's a shooting. That was the most realistic part of it. And I thought the way
Yeah.
that it ended was genius. I mean, what did you think about that ending, Savannah?
I think you watched the movie for the ending. I thought how everything played out is just very scarily realistic. Just from the time the shooter gets to the bank from to the actual like point it ends is completely realistic and is the reason you watched the movie. I was very impressed. It was very well done.
Yeah, I also think it does a really good job, even though we do see what brings the shooter to his boiling point, at least in my opinion, we don't feel empathy. We're not given
No.
enough for the shooter to feel empathy towards him. And I think that was one of the good parts of not having empathy towards him. I think that was one of the good parts where it's like, it was balanced in terms of giving him screen time and getting to know the very, very, very bare minimum about his life before him doing such horrible acts. I also thought it was just crazy how, like, we see the little boy in the car and we don't know if, his foster mom comes back out and just things like that. Like, just so crazy.
It's very like it was very sad, but I really appreciated how sensitive the director was because I think with this whole film it can get very tricky, especially when you also give the perspective of the shooter. And I thought he did a really great job at not having us feel anything from him. Like,
Hmm.
not even to the point where we're just like, oh, I see why you snapped. Like, not really, you know? So I was also, I do think this movie was very tastefully done.
Yeah, I think also this is one of those movies where you can take, and although it is a good movie in it on its own, you can take and you can remake this and you can make it more powerful. You can make it more relevant than ever. You
Yeah.
can definitely do a lot with this, at least with the structure of this movie. It should be played around with more. Where rather a bunch of connected sequences and getting to know characters and, a whole story connecting through and through, having these fragments with these harsh, hard cuts in between these clips. I think it's a brilliant way of storytelling that should be experimented with more often.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, I think this would, and also, especially when you have, and even like if you're not going to do a more documentary feel, more of a reflection of society type of thing, this type of segmenting would work so well for a horror movie or for like just a really, really like scary and intense movie, especially where it's one of those things where maybe like in a horror sense, because this kind of does have like a
It's
horror
very
movie
eerie.
undertone. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be so cool to see a horror movie try out this format where it's like, well, like maybe I think it would be so cool if like a horror movie would show like the end shot of like all the main characters dead in the beginning and then cuts just straight to the beginning and how it happens and just segments from
Yeah.
here and there and just keeps going through about. I think that is a fantastic way of storytelling that should be just experimented with more. Okay, so Savannah, what's your rating for this movie, and would you own it on DVD?
Okay. So I'm going to give this movie a 7.5. I've really
Okay.
liked the creative aspect of it. I think it's a story well told. I think the director did a fantastic job. It is not the most entertaining film. It is cold. It's very distant, unattainable almost for the audience to like kind of grasp the characters at all.
Mhm.
And it's not a movie I would actually want to see more than maybe once or twice, just because it's slow and it's very sad and depressing. So, and no, but it's still a fantastic movie. I hope somebody remakes it, retakes it, and I think everyone should see this movie at least
I
once.
volunteer.
There you go. There you go.
I'll do it, and I'll make it even more depressing than the first one.
Woo! But a little bit more entertaining, I hope.
Yes,
Got a
a
bit of a
little bit more.
trade-off.
Dude, you're gonna feel so hard when you watch my cut of it.
That's what I want to cry. For something like this, I would like to cry. But again, not a reflection on the creativity or anything like that. It's fantastic. I just would not own this, and I don't want to see it more than once or twice. So 7.5. What about you?
It's not a Criterion, but if it was a Criterion or just a regular DVD, would you own either?
Again, I probably wouldn't, just because I don't see myself going back to this. I understand it. I think if you want to make films, so Stephanie, I think this would be a good movie for you to have under your belt. But for
Mhm.
me, it's just not something I want to watch again. So
That's fair.
it wouldn't be worth the money for me.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat with you. I would probably give it a 7. I think there's a lot of potential with this, and that's once again like how you were saying, not a diss on the creativity and what already is the film. But I also think this applies to a niche audience, and that really is people who want to be in filmmaking. I think this is something, or people who want to maybe be in journalism or some
Yeah.
type of broadcasting. This would be something I would recommend to those people as well. Um, and like the power of broadcasting, and like or even like people who are just very involved with news of the world. I definitely think this is something I could see myself recommending to people, but only a very small group. um I would give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like is a good point for me. um and I kind of I'm in the same boat as you. I think there's a lot of potential here. Rewatchability is very low. However, I could see myself looking at this film constantly if I wanted to try the formula that it has
Yeah.
of that fragmentation. So, do I still recommend it? Yes. Would I, if this was a Criterion, do I think it should be a Criterion? Absolutely. And would I own said Criterion? Absolutely. I'd love to be able to see, more of the background and how it was made and what inspired it during the time, especially in mid 90s Austria.
Mm-hmm.
I This is definitely something I think I would like to own on DVD if the Criterion made it. Regular DVD, I don't see myself seeing unless it came with like the ton of content that Criterion puts in into their sets
Yeah.
and everything like that. I do, like I said, I really just recommend it. I don't think it's something that the masses are going to find attractive or interesting or,
Mm-hmm.
invigorating by any means. But I do still think it's an important film, and I do think it's very important to the history of film and the history of storytelling, especially in the modern world with world news and everything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are just our final thoughts on it. Take it for what you will. Um, as always, thank you to Homeboy James and Sensei David. Now, if you would love to be thanked on Purple Noon Podcast in almost every single, we've been pretty good. We've done almost every
Yeah.
single episode. I think we missed one or two when we have guests on. But if you would like to be thanked at the end of every single episode, check out our Patreon. We have $1 where if you pay $1 a month, you get a shout out every episode. Not every
Woo!
month, every episode. So be sure to check that out. There's also tons of other ways to support us if you like what we do. Simply by sharing our Spotify account and just listening to us. Play us in the background while you're doing cleaning, while you're doing schoolwork or whatever. You need some ASMR to go to sleep. Probably
You're very
watch
soothing.
I could be a little bit loud though. But I just like that comment. You're very soothing.
Yeah.
But definitely check out when we talk about 24 frames. That was quite a very low episode. But yeah, just those are just some ways to support us. Check out our Letterboxd, which is at Purple Noon. We got Twitter, Instagram, all the stuff, which is always linked down below. And next time, Savanna and us, we're gonna be on a different tone. I'm hyped. I've been wanting to see this movie for a while, and I've been waiting to see it for episode 55. Episode 55, we are gonna be talking about The Life Ahead, a new Italian movie starring Sophia Loren.
I will be
And it's
screaming for 2 hours.
she will be screaming for 2 hours. So that is not, if you like listening us to for ASMR, that is not the episode to watch for ASMR purposes.
Come
But
get hyped up with us. Come get excited with us.
come come join us praise a queen. That is
Oh,
Sophia
yeah.
Loren. And Life Ahead is available on Netflix, so get to it, watch it, so you can, listen to what we have to say about it, like it matters. But thank you to everyone who is listening right now. Always also be sure to check out links. There's other cool things like discount codes and stuff like that down below. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.